Hello there, guys. Welcome back to another installment of the Unwatched Pile. I'm Stephen Billings, your host, and your other host is here, Mr. Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen. Doing good. We are back here once again for another episode of the Unwatched Pile. We're dusting off our stuff from our Unwatched Pile. I know these movies tend to collect a lot of dust if they sit on your shelf for too long. So if you're not familiar with what we do here for this episode, we take stuff off of our to-watched pile, and we watch it, obviously, and then we pair it up with another movie in our collection to create a double feature. And that is what we do here about twice a month, every 2 weeks or so. It seems to be the regular schedule. And we usually typically have a guest. And this time, indeed, we do have a guest. And our guest is a returning member to the Chasing Labels world. And that would be one Rachael Bellwoar, who had a fantastic episode of Chasing Labels about a month ago. So we'll introduce her in quite a second.
Rachael in.
Hello. Nice to see everyone.
Want to say off the bat, this might be a janky episode because I'm having technical difficulties that these two are not having apparently. So hopefully this is coming across to everybody in some kind of way. But Rachael, we're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, Stephen.
Yeah, Rachael. So for those of you, so for the people who didn't see our episode of Chasing Labels, please introduce yourself and what you've got going on. Because I know you.
Please tell us a little bit about your
show.
Absolutely. So I am a writer for the website Comic-Con. I have a column in the Physical Media Advocate where, because it's a monthly magazine, I look at an actor who was born the month the issue comes out, and I look at some of their films. What film made me fascinated with them. What's their best physical media release, and then also what film still needs to come out on hopefully Blu-ray someday. And now I've been trying to branch out into podcasting. Like you said, I was really excited to be here and talk to you. I guess, it was beginning of July when we did our Chasing Labels episode. And I also have a podcast. There's a trailer out. It's called Beyond the Valley of the Discs. I'm doing it with my friend Jerome Router. And the first episode will be coming out August 13th. We're going to do like how Criterion announcements are the 15th every month. We're going to do the 13th every month. And so that is in the works. And like I said, the trailer is out. It's part of the Someone's Favorite Productions Network. And yeah, that's what I have going right now.
Awesome. You seem to have a lot of things in the works and a lot of things that you've been working on. Which is great to hear. You can go back and check Rachel's episode here on Chasing Labels if you haven't already. It was almost a record breaker of an episode. We went almost 5 hours, which I know is a pretty long time for anyone to listen to any podcast. So I always thank people for sticking with us. I know Stephen has ducked out because he's having some technical issues with a bit of a lag or delay. Hopefully he'll return sometime soon. Oh, there he is. He's loading in now. I'm assuming he switched devices. I don't know if he's. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
I did. How am I coming through? You?
Slightly staccato, but overall okay.
Well, you're coming through straightforward to me. Am I on a lag?
Oh, good. No, I think it just smoothed out, so it's good on my end.
Okay. Well, I know the audio is not going to be as good, but whatever internet issues going on with me, or if it's my computer, I'm just going to have to do it on my phone here. So, all right. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry to make this all a bad little intro, but I'm sorry. What did I miss?
Well, Rachael did her intro about all the stuff that she's been working on and her time here on Chasing Labels, and we were just about to transition, I guess, to what her choice would be, because I know our guest always goes first.
Yes, let's do it.
So I picked the film Shanks, which is out from Cinematography, which is one of Vinegar Syndrome's labels. This is a film that I have almost bought so many times, and I kept going back and forth. I'd watched the trailer, I'd be unsure about it, And what finally changed my mind actually was Indicator released a William Castle film, Undertow, recently, and this was another one that it's a noir. What made me know I needed to get it was it has one of the final commentaries by Lee Gambin, who is a legend and will always be a legend. So that's the main reason I got it. But I didn't expect much from the movie itself because I just thought it was going to be a B movie noir. But I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it made me realize that I can never doubt William Castle again, and I just have to buy his films, which is when we get to Shanks, which, if I didn't mention already, is his final film, and it's an unusual one, to say the least, but I think absolutely brilliant. Spoiler, I adore it. I ended up adoring it. It stars Marcel Marceau, who was a mime. If you're not aware of that, and I don't think he's done too many movies, but he plays a character named Malcolm Shanks, and he is a puppeteer, and it's a 70s movie, but it has because he plays a character, they describe him as a deaf mute, and the movie itself takes on a lot of, in format, is a lot like a silent movie. There are the cue intertitles, and it kind of really backs him because it's not a film that's like a sound film that's trying to make him convert or fit into a hearing world. It kind of, the movie matches his vibe, but it's really unusual. It's, like I said, he's a puppeteer. He has some really nasty relatives. One's his, well, they give her a few different names. One time they say it's her sister, one time they say stepsister. So exact relation is unclear, but either way, she's a total monster. Her and her alcoholic husband are his guardians, I guess. Even, I mean, he's an adult, but I guess they act like his guardian figures, but they're kind of, they're using him because they want money, and he gets this job at this mansion with this old scientist guy randomly, who is actually also played by Selmer's show in very heavy makeup. And for whatever reason, this scientist guy decides to hire him, and they start doing experiments. And it's all about it kind of becomes a little bit Frankenstein in nature, and they're not really bringing people back to life. It starts out with animals, but it's like reanimating them and like turning them into zombie puppet kind of thing. So it's not like they're talking. It's not really Frankenstein, but it's got that vibe to it. And it's like I said, it's a very strange movie, but if you get on its wavelengths, it's absolutely brilliant. And he's eventually, I'm not going to get into too spoiler territory, but the old man dies, and it's about whether he'll take the next step in terms of, like, they've been working on animals, and will he now try to make a human alive? He lives in this isolated Gothic mansion. So it has this weird where he's in like these flare pants, very 70s, but it's got the Gothic ambiance that's brilliant. And it's kind of, because he's in this isolated building, he gets away with it and without prying eyes. But then his relatives are like, oh, where's the cash flow? Why are we stopped getting paid? So they start getting in. The outside world starts impeding on him, and it gets very dark from there. Because he's a puppeteer, he has a lot of friends with children in the neighboring town, and all he wants to do is celebrate. His best friend is this one little girl, and he wants to make her a puppet for her birthday, and he has this whole birthday party planned. And yeah, I realize I feel like the way I'm describing the plot, it isn't the best because it just jumps kind of all over the place, but it makes sense when you're watching it. It's just really sweet, very dark. Like I said, it goes to about the most macabre places you can go. But I just really loved Marcel Marceau's character, his performance. Like I said, it's very silent movie in nature, but just the whole juxtaposition of it being also 70s, and it's like very like Tommy would have come out around, I think, well, a little later, I guess 80s. So it feels very in terms of fashions along those lines, and I just adored it. I highly, highly recommend it. Please don't flim flam around with this release like I did. Please go support it because brilliant, and I haven't gotten through all the bonus features yet, but I know Heather Drain and Alexandra Helen-Nicholas did 2 of the booklet essays. So I also recommend splurging and getting the fancier edition versus the standard, because I'm very excited to dig into those. But yeah, I now officially adore Shanks.
I really like this. I think we should rename the show Flim Flam Pile.
Deal.
I like it. But no, I love William Castle. I remember when Indicator came out with them box sets initially,
Yes.
and it got me so excited to go through that set, because like as you go through it, you just realize like, yeah, like on the surface, he was known for being this guy that did gimmicks and things like that, but he had a lot of interesting ideas, and he took a lot of chances with a lot of them films that I think that get kind of overlooked. And they're just watchable. They're all like a lot of his films are just very watchable. And yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to grab this one, so I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, just like
similarly to me, I don't mean to cut you off, Rachel.
Oh
no. I kind of waited similarly to you, where I was waiting for I'm waiting for it to go down in price in one of their sales for Vinegar Syndrome, halfway to Black Friday, like their Black Friday sale, or like a subscribers week sale or something like that, because that's the best time to get those cinematograph releases, because they're just too good to pass up when it comes to some of the pricing. And this was one that I did talk about when it was announced here on for Chasing Labels. And I remember, remarking that it is indeed William Castle's last movie. So if you're interested in like that whole thing of like, what does a well-known director's last movie look like? This fits in that category of interest to you. Also, we call him kind of the king of the gimmicks. And in this movie, it is a little gimmicky, if you will, because he's dealing with puppetry and like reanimation, like you said, and, a little necromancy with raising of the dead and whatnot. And so that's kind of a gimmick. Also, he still likes to do like his Hitchcockian cameos in his movies.
yes.
And he does one in this film as well. There's a scene where they go to a convenience store, and he, I think, is the person who's like working the counter at the convenience store, and it's him. So
I didn't catch it until the closing credits. I saw his name, and I'm like, oh wait, and
he's in it. Yeah.
It's an interesting conversation to talk about gimmicks, because I mean we did that once on Cinema Discovery Project, I believe,
right,
back in the day. But it's an interesting subject, because I think one person's gimmick is another person's style. I mean, you could consider it a style. I mean, like, because like for instance, who's big right now? Christopher Nolan. He has a specific thing that he does every time, every movie, even down to the font on his movie posters are all the same. He has everybody has a signature, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be called a gimmick.
Right. I think we're using that as like an umbrella term.
I know.
Because I think when we did that episode of Cinema Discovery Project many years ago, we were talking also specifically about like different movie formats and how certain movies are, exhibited in different formats. And we see that now. You just mentioned, Christopher Nolan. You can see The Odyssey in several formats now. You can see it in 70 millimeter film. You can see it in IMAX. You can see it in regular standard, digital format. You can see it in 4DX, where you get thrown around like you're in the middle of a theme park ride, and your food and stuff goes all over the place. Those are always fun videos on TikTok, because people are getting wrecked in those theaters.
Well, the point I was trying to make was that I think that the word gimmick gets a negative connotation to it,
right?
And I think that I'm not saying we can't use the word. I'm just saying that people need to understand that doesn't necessarily mean that it should be a negative thing. I think that's just another word for like that's his signature style, their signature thing that they do. I mean, it's something that M. Night Shyamalan went through that. He still does his same kind of
the third act twists.
Twist. I mean, that's his thing. That's what he's good at, and people continue to go see his movies. I mean, it's just.
And like William Castle, for those of you who don't know, listening and want to get into William Castle, he would do like in theater gimmicks, like House on Haunted Hill. He would have a skeleton like on a line on a string that would swing down from the back and come and scare people in the front. In The Tingler, he would have certain seats would be kind of like how do you say it? Like electrocuted up,
Yeah,
That's-
zapped
rigged
or
up, rigged up
that
to
would
give you a little
stuff that
buzz
people would
when the
get
people would
sued
show
for
up.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, and they would only do it in a couple of theaters, because that's kind of crazy. He would, do all kinds of things where he would, have like I said, skeletons come in, and he would have people like planted in the audience to like freak out and like pass out and stuff. I mean, all kinds of cool, like almost carnival gimmicks, if you will. People kind of consider him almost like a poor man's Hitchcock, but I think that's kind of insulting a little bit.
extremely.
But he was really, really good. And like you said, a lot of his movies are available now to watch. There are 2 great box sets from Indicator. They may be out of print,
But
I
they have
still
standard editions on.
Yeah.
You can't get the box anymore, but you can get all of them, like Mr. Sardonicus and 13 Ghosts, and yeah, all of them are available, just not in the cool box anymore.
Right. So you can still, they're still available, so you can still get those. But yeah, Shanks is interesting because it is dealing with, like you were mentioning, also dealing with someone, living in a world with a disability, and this is back in the 70s. Exhibiting that on screen is not something that was typically done a lot during that era of movie making and whatnot. I find that to be just kind of fascinating in and of itself. But yeah, the movie has a very macabre type of feeling to it. It feels almost, I don't want to say it, but like almost like the Vincent Price films from the 60s. It gives me those vibes. But I don't want to say any other movies. I don't want to give away what your pairing could possibly be.
But just because it's his final movie too, there's a sadness to it. Like he passed away very like only a few years later after this movie came out, and I think he was ill too. So I don't know if that was already at the time of filming. But there's just, because it's dealing with death, because it's dealing with bringing people back to life, and this is a very isolated, lonely character, and he's kind of, manipulating dead bodies. There's all morality behind that, but how he's approaching it, it's not done in a sinister, he's not an evil scientist out to get people. He's just kind of trying to do his thing, and there's an innocence to it. And he's an adult man, but he a lot of his friends are children, so there's a childlike just wonder to it. And like, he's making friends, he's keeping himself company and entertained, and it's just when the outside world comes in that things start going wrong. And it's just how it deals with death and how it looks at it, and how it's his grieving process, because he becomes very close to this old man, and who wouldn't want to it's the one guy who's being nice to him, and who wouldn't want to bring him back to life. And it's kind of, that was their experiment, so it's kind of continuing his legacy. There's all different ways of looking at it, but it's just, like I said, I don't know if he was thinking a lot about death at the time, but that is definitely a heavy theme in this movie. And it's just kind of done with a light touch, but also, like I said, it goes as dark as it can get in terms of some of the things that happen towards the end. But it's beautiful too, and I would very highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Taking a chance on it.
We have a comment here from our friend Tony,
yes.
who filmed at 79, who of course was also a guest here on Chasing Labels as well. And he says, a huge William Castle fan, Straight Jacket will always be my favorite. That's the movie with Joan Crawford wielding an axe. Yeah. And she would come to the movie theaters wielding an axe and pretend to like swing at the audience with a fake axe.
I think there was even gimmick. Like a cake and then she cut the cake with an axe too. Like, I think there's a promo photo of that.
That's great
100%
stuff.
Agree about that movie being brilliant. And like, they always make fun that she did B movies later, but they were so great. It's like, it's a brilliant performance. It's like, there's nothing less. It's completely different from her Mildred Pierce's and her more classy films, but it's just, I love that she loved acting, and she kept acting. And like I said, you said too, like, William Castle always gets compared to other. He did some great films with Vincent Price, but always people talk about like the Roger Corman films more. He just like always gets like as an afterthought or treated in like a B movie status, but his films are brilliant, and he was a showman, and just his whole approach. And at the time, it was about getting people into theaters, and he did that. And it just, everything I've watched of his, there's another film too, I can't think of the title right now, but that Kino released, kind of, we talked mostly about, Indicator did a lot of it, this was Vinegar Syndrome, but there's one with kids, and like there's a shark in the pool, and I forget, or Kill Uncle. Let's Kill Uncle.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still in print, but that's another one that's not talked about in his filmography. That's a really just, and again, kids are the protagonist, and they have a evil. I forget if it was actual biological uncle or just mean guy. So it's kids versus adults, and it just is a lot of really like if you like Home Alone, that would be I think a good parallel to this film. And so yeah, all William Castle films are great, but yeah, Straight Jacket's one of the best. Agree with that.
All right. Well, we'll come back around to see what you paired with that. And now, Andrew, tell us a little bit about that Mike Lee guy.
So my pick is the movie Topsy Turvy, which got a Blu-ray release from Criterion, I believe, back in 2011. So this has been sitting in my unwatched pile, I don't think quite since 2011, but maybe 2012, maybe 2013. So it's been a time.
I'm with you, buddy. Mine's still sitting on the shelf too. You know why? Because it's long. And
yes, this is indeed a long movie. It is 160 minutes, and you do kind of feel it in the movie. This is a period piece from Mike Lee, who at the time really wasn't known for doing period pieces. I was talking with Rachael before the show. This is his first period piece, and set in the late 19th century, 1884, 1885. It takes place over about a 15-month period, and it centers around the entertainment duo, the artistic duo of Gilbert and Sullivan. Gilbert and Sullivan, who were a kind of like the Rodgers and Hammerstein of their time, if you will, but in the opera world, in the operatic world. And they collaborated on 14 operas together during that late period of the 19th century. And this movie kind of chronicles, I think it's their 8th or 9th opera that they were working on, The Mikado, which actually ended up being their most famous and well known and well played opera of their careers. I think when it initially came out, there was like 672 runs of it or something like that. It was one of the second most all time up until that time or something like that. All kinds of record breaking. And The Mikado was an opera set in Japan, but it was a satire about British society and like aristocracy and the government and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was something like that. And it's interesting how it came about. In the late 19th century, Japan had kind of just opened up its borders back up to the world. For about a century, Japan, I believe, closed its borders entirely to the outside world. So when it reopened its borders in the, I would say, mid to late 19th century, that's when it started to industrialize. The movie The Last Samurai is kind of set around that time period, with Tom Cruise, Ken Watanabe, and it's all about that transition from the old, the old ways of not imperial Japan, but the samurai era of Japan to the new modern era of industrialization. So there was all kinds of Japanese influence now being unleashed on the world outside of Japan. And a lot of those influences ended up over in England, and they just happened to take those influences and put it into their opera of The Mikado. And this movie stars the usual troupe of Mike Lee collaborators, if you will, certain names and people you will recognize: Jim Broadbent, as well as Timothy Spall. Leslie Manville is in the movie as well. She's a great actress. And this movie just chronicles the making of The Mikado and the struggle of, when you have these two, artists at the top of their game. You have one who's doing the playwriting and one who's doing the composing. I believe Gilbert is the one who was the playwright. Yeah, he was a dramatist, and poet and illustrator and stuff like that. And then you had Sir Arthur Sullivan, who was a composer, so he was writing the music. And initially, they were going to do a completely different type of opera, something similar to they had done before, similar plots, similar gimmicks, we were just talking about, if you will, similar plot beats and all kinds of stuff. And they decided through a lot of arguing that they were going to change things up dramatically. And the movie chronicles all of that. It's a different movie than you typically see from Mike Lee. I was talking with Rachael earlier. She brought up a lot of great points where typically he concentrates on modern films, or at least modern society in which he's making the times he's making his film in, about blue collar society, blue collar workers, the struggle in society about trying to just survive, whether it be familial drama or just drama in life in general, just all this kinds of stuff. So many of his movies have gotten Criterion releases. So many of his movies are very well beloved. I know the movie Naked with David Thewlis is one that I think every Criterion collector probably has in their collection. It just The Sweet Life, which is an early film from his that he did, that's excellent as well. Secrets and Lies, which is one of my favorites from his, also starring Timothy Spall, and I think it's one of his best movies. And then he went on, of course, to do other movies in the 2000s, but he did a certain couple of period pieces. Mr. Turner, he did with Timothy Spall like a decade ago or so, maybe a dozen years. That's another period piece, but it doesn't quite have the thematic underbelly that those movies have, topsy-turvy. So he's basically pushing himself out of his comfort zone, which you don't see a lot of directors do. So I'm very bold to do that. And the movie itself is really good, but you have to kind of be into the world of theater, of opera, to I think really appreciate the artistry going on and to appreciate the world in which this movie captures. The acting is great, the costuming, the set design, the world in which he creates in this film is unlike any he's done before, and it's really, really good. I know it was a critically acclaimed, well-beloved movie at the time, nominated for Oscars and other critical awards and whatnot. But yeah, I've had this in my collection for a long time, so I'm glad to finally watch it. So that's Topsy-Turvy.
Yeah, I'm with Tony. Secrets and Lies. That's probably my favorite. You'll probably have to pop it on there if you want to show Tony's comment.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you can't do it on your phone.
Well, I can, but it's a little bit more annoying. It's
involved. So yeah, Secrets and Lies is my favorite. That's
Yeah,
actually, I think, one of my first Mike Leigh movies I ever watched. I
Well, I
watched
watched
it in
that.
film school.
I watched it on this show for the first time, and
Yes.
it was great. And I actually recently was in an antique shop and found an original poster for it.
Wow.
Rolled up somewhere. Yeah. It's in not good shape, but I took it anyway. I was like, I'll save you. But yeah, dude, I that one's been on my shelf as well for a while. And it was me at the time, just like I think just gathering great what I've been told were great films from great directors, and it's just on the list. I got to get to it too. I'm glad you got to it finally.
Yeah. Tony also says Mike Leigh's films are amazing as they are improvised, just a script outline, and the actors make up the dialogue. Fantastic. Yeah, he's got like really great thespians working in his films. Like these people are like upper echelon, like classically trained actors, and you can feel that in the movie. Like this is like you're watching some high class art here. You know what I mean? These this really, really talented people, and a lot of those people you'll see in other movies as well. Ironically, the Harry Potter films took all of Mike Leigh's cast and put them in these movies. Jim Broadbent, Imelda Staunton, David Thewlis played a heavy character in there. It's like all of these British actors making their way to the fantasy world. But Rachel, have you've seen Topsy-Turvy?
I have. I remember it not being my favorite because I think I prefer like his more character studies because it's based on a true story too. It's more like not able to be improvised because you're dealing with real people and real biographies, and like you mentioned too, like you have to be maybe into the world of opera to really understand it. Like I preferred Mr. Turner because probably I prefer painting and like that kind of art history. So I enjoyed that one more. But overall, Mike Leigh's brilliant. One that hasn't come out on Blu-ray that I hope somebody will put out is Career Girls, which I caught one time on the Criterion Channel. I'm also really excited. BFI is putting out some of his TV plays, like Nuts in May, which is a really hilarious, very annoying people, but done but people you recognize from real life. There's a song that the main character in that film sings about going to the zoo, and it's like and he keeps and it like keeps repeating the refrain, and it's annoying as hell, but it's brilliant because it's just like he's not afraid, and the actors too. Like you said, he has brilliant people working for him. Leslie Manville, I adore, and just a name that I feel like she's finally getting her flowers that she richly deserves. But Dorothy Atkinson is another one who appears in a lot of his films, and she also was on a DC show on Pennyworth. Like she played Pennyworth. I forget if it was mom or aunt, but she's a genius, and just getting to know his troupe of actors and his regular faces and putting name, like after what you've seen them, you finally put a name to the face. But he's a brilliant actor. Just he does these very real people, and how conversations and like the awkward pauses and the uncomfortableness. He's not afraid to capture those uncomfortable moments, and that conversations don't go smoothly in real life. And it's just very real people in just all their foibles. And yeah, so I guess this one, and because it's all about behind the scenes, it's more the stage show and like just the more like movies about making movies, even though it's not movies but theatrical, which aren't always ones I identify. I just prefer, I guess, more the real world. Nothing even happens in his movies. Sometimes it's just people interacting and the drama of relationships. And I guess I prefer those films, but it is the same people in the Topsy Turvy, and it's good. But I would have to revisit it, because I just remember, and like you said, you do feel it's not one of those films that at runtime you forget that you spent that much time. You do feel it at certain moments.
Yeah,
so
they
it
really
wouldn't be the
get
first one I'd watch. If you've never seen a Mike Leigh film, I don't know that I'd start
Yeah,
there.
I wouldn't start with Topsy Turvy. I would start with more of his more well-known stuff. Like even Secrets and Lies is a good one to start with. I mean, that's where I started. But even The Sweet Life, yeah, I think is a really good place to start. It's an earlier film from him. And it is dealing with a lot of those, like kind of you're saying, conversations, uncomfortable conversations, real human emotions, real human drama, real human details. It's kind of like an early form of what he would, kind of perfect later on in some of his other work. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. Topsy Turvy is. But I guess we're going to move on to Steven's pick now. We do have some other comments here, Steven. I know our friend Josie has a whole list of recent watches. Some of these do look familiar. She says, "Hello, Andrew, Stephen, and Rachel. New watches. I want to highlight Mr. Vampire from '85, Who Killed Teddy Bear. Speaking of cinematograph, My Blue Heaven, An Angel at My Table, and Mike Leigh's Career Girls, which Rachel just mentioned.
That is probably my number one.
Also, Notes on a Scandal, which I feel is a movie that people don't talk about that much, with Kate Blanchett, and I think is Judi Dench who's in that. I think it is.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, check it out. It's a like a psychological thriller, if you will. But yeah, Stephen, I guess we're going to go to your pick now, and your pick is a recent release.
Yeah, I didn't want to flim flam around with this one.
Nice.
Okay, I had been hearing about this movie for a while, and it was kind of an anticipated release for a lot of people that were fans of Frank Perry, the director, and I definitely am. Since I saw The Swimmer, and then have gone on to watch, Diary of a Housewife, and just everything I see of his, he's such an interesting filmmaker, and he's always like taking chances with everything he does. And I just had to pick up Last Summer. Just got released from Warner Archive. As you can see, a special slipcover edition that you do not see a lot from Warner Archive. But I think because this film seems to be kind of like a movie that almost got away from us. It's really important to a lot of people. So our friend Larry Karaszewski, who we did an interview with way back in the day, I think was a big part of how this kind of came about. And he does a lot of features on this. He does some interviews with the actors. He's just very involved with this release. But this film, Last Summer, is very much a coming of age story. It's only really has like 4 characters in the whole movie. There's like a 5th character that pops in for like a second, but really this is just like a 4-person show. And it's about these 3 friends who meet on a beach during the summertime, and 2 girls and a guy, 2 guys and a girl. And The girl's played by Barbara Hershey, and we have Richard Thomas and Bruce Davis, and who are the two guys. And this is them all very young, and it's really them kind of going through a lot of their curiosities together. Not when it comes to their sexuality and their kind of interaction with the opposite sex. And that's really the movie. There's not really a plot. It's very much just a slice of life, coming of age type of movie that wants to explore the complex nature of like your hormones, being hormonal, wanting to explore your sexuality, but also not wanting to feel like you feel the awkwardness. You don't want to feel like that you're taking advantage, but then you also sometimes them things don't come to your mind when you really want something, and then how these three friends kind of get so close that it becomes to a point where it's like there is no meaning for their behavior. They're just kind of like doing things just to do things. And then there's a fourth character. There's a girl that comes into the play that kind of explodes this whole kind of dynamic that's going on. And the ending to this movie really kind of just like swerves out of nowhere. You kind of feel like something's going to happen. And when it does, it kind of just blows you away at the end, and really kind of like puts its foot in the ground and like says, what do you think about that? I don't know about you, Rachel. I know Andrew's seen last summer. Rachel, have you seen it?
I've seen it too. Yeah.
Yeah. This movie was, Frank Perry he hasn't let me down yet.
Yeah, it's a kind of film that the ending is so shocking that like you don't want to tell people, but also you kind of want to warn people, because it is not a faint of heart ending, and it's a film a lot about peer pressure and how like the young woman who comes into the group, they're all, and I don't even know if they were really friends before this or if they just met because it's summer vacation and they all are around the area. I couldn't tell if they really had that history, because I think at one point they said two of them were from New York and one was from New Jersey, or vice versa. So I don't know how well these people know each other, but they get really close really fast. And like you said, there's nobody else around. And it's just like this kind of, is it better to say, hey, I don't really want to do what you're doing, so I'm going to be by myself? Is it better to be alone, or is it better to be with people who you're not sure about or you're not feeling comfortable with, but is that better? And it's kind of like that whole dynamic, and there's a lot of peer pressure involved, and whether you cave to that or not. And like a lot of times she'll initially say no, but then then she'll catch up to them, and it's just like these ugly dynamics. It's people taking advantage, and they're young, and they all have, like, the parents are completely absent. They get talked about sometimes, but they're completely absent from the film, so they're really left to their own devices. But it's in no way like you think of like this came out in I think late 60s, and you think of what the teen movies are, like the beach party bingo movies. Like, it's so light and airy, and okay, maybe there'll be fights, but it all gets resolved at the end. And this movie is much more serious and much more like, I guess, Lord of the Flies in nature by the end. It's like I said, I don't want to spoil the ending, because if you don't know, it comes out of nowhere. But at the same time, like, it feels like a film you have to be a little prepared or brace yourself for, because I did kind of get spoiled, but I was prepared that I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but I knew something bad. But yeah.
Well, I think like I said it before, like, I think that you, as you're watching the movie, you feel like something's going to happen, because there's this sexual tension through the whole movie that has never quite gotten there yet. And then by the time you get to the last scene of the movie, it explodes. But in the way that it happens, you do not expect.
It's a question of like, who's going to get hurt. Like, somebody is, but you don't know which character necessarily. And
or how it will happen. You don't know. Yeah, it's just shocking about how it goes down, and it really makes you think about like you said, like peer pressure is very much in the themes of this, and about, doing things when they feel right, instead of doing things just because. But yeah, it's Andrew. There's a lot there. There's a lot
Yeah,
there.
there's so much in this movie for a movie that is kind of, like you were saying, kind of plotless and aimless for most of its time, and even through all the way to its ending. It's a movie that is so interesting because you have this age dynamic in there, but it's a small age dynamic, but it also might as well be a cavernous, because you have these older teens and you have this younger teen who's this young girl that gets introduced with these older teens. And that's kind of like Rachel was saying, there is no safety net adult supervision. It's from a time long ago, the late 1950s.
And the one adult you meet is a creep.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so fascinating how ancient contextually in society this movie is in terms of the independence of teenagers, but also how contemporary it is because of what these teenagers are going through. Like you said, coming of age type stuff, this exploration of sexuality, as well as, things like alcohol and drugs and all kinds of stuff. Well, it's stuff that every generation kind of deals with, in their own way, all the way up until now. This just happens to be set in the late 1960s, where all of this stuff is just kind of really being talked about and explored in movies. I feel like it would be like the late 1950s onward would kind of more so explore all of those things in movies and pop culture, because you had like the explosion of expression in the 1960s and the hippie generation and all kinds of political protesting and freedom of thought and freedom and free sex and all that kind of stuff from the 60s. And this movie is not quite exploring that generation, but like the generation that's going to come right after them. Like right after, this would be the generation that they wouldn't be adults until like a few years later. Like they won't be adults until like probably the mid to late 70s. So it's it's within the same generation, but they're a little bit earlier on. It's kind of like how millennials, there's elder millennials, like I guess Stephen and I are now elder millennials, and then there are like younger millennials who were born, in the mid to late 90s. You know what I mean? It's we're in the same generation, but things are a little bit slightly different. And this is kind of exploring that, slightly different generation, if you will. But this movie is, like you said, an exploration of like peer pressure and exploration and tension amongst young people as well. And then there's also like this explosion of all that tension that's building up throughout this movie at the end. An interesting movie that on the surface maybe about nothing because it's plotless and aimless, but it's about so many things. And like you mentioned, Larry Karaszewski worked on getting the restoration done for this, and it's one of the rare times that we get a slipcover with a Blu-ray from Warner Archive. That only happens with their new 4Ks that have been coming out. So if you're a slipcover enthusiast, I don't know how big of a run that's going to have before it's gone. But yeah, just pointing that out for people.
And the way the movie, similarly to like a Mike Leigh thing, it's a very authentic type of movie. It has that very kind of genuineness about the actors and how they interact with each other, and how the situations play out feel very real. I feel like there's a few of these little situations that I've been in, when it's been with another girl or been around friends, like I've felt some of these emotions before, for sure. So like it feels very, very genuine. It feels like Frank Perry really had his finger on the pulse of something at the time.
It's interesting how existential the movie is. And of course, with The Swimmer, that whole movie is existential. It's literally a movie about a guy journeying through his life, if you will. It's very how authentic this movie is. Very young Barbara Hershey's in the movie. I can't remember if she had done Boxcar Bertha after this. I'm looking right now. I think she had done Boxcar Bertha after this.
When I was watching it, I kept having to think like Richard Thomas, like, oh, they let John Boy do this film, and then I realized no, this came before the Waltons. But like I kept thinking like in terms of where this fell in his career, like if that would have been a very difficult sell if they knew him as John Boy, but because this was before all that, he was able to do this much darker role that I wouldn't think they'd want their primetime TV star to do otherwise.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I I do like to see where people are in their careers when they make certain movies, especially the more famous actors and actresses. Just curious how and of course if they're different formats, like if they're typically TV actors, at what point do they step out of TV and do movies? Is it during their run or during not their run? I always think of this, and Steve, you're gonna have to stop me going off on a tangent here. I was talking about James Bond the other day, and I always bring up that Pierce Brosnan was supposed to be James Bond earlier than he was with GoldenEye, but he couldn't get out of his TV deal that he was doing for Remington Steele. So that's why we have Timothy Dalton, who did 2 James Bond movies in the late 80s, is because of that. So it's sometimes like you've got actors trying to make movies, but they can't for contractual reasons. Because they're either in TV or they're contracted to do other movies for other companies. All kinds of stuff like that. I've always find that endlessly fascinating. But last summer is a really great movie. So good choice, Stephen. Great choice.
I just you know what? This show is just about taking chances. We did it.
Right. Some of these do end up being blind buys. I mean, ironically, I think they're all kind of blind buys because we haven't seen any of these movies.
I mean, I think the thing is like I do my research on most things that I buy. So, and I think I hit mostly, unlike, like the last show, I didn't hit very well.
Yeah. And bring up the one you always like to bring up that you missed on.
Southland Tales.
Yep. Brings it up every time.
Southland Tales. Yeah. Every once in a while you hit one that you're like, I don't really need that. No, last episode, it was the Omen.
Oh,
3.
yeah. The Omen 3.
Oh, it's terrible. And then I realized I didn't really like the Omen either. I was like, I don't really like the whole series of them.
It was a very revealing episode for you.
Yeah. I was like, this really isn't that great of a horror series. But we'll move on from that, and let's get back around to Rachael, who's going to tell us her pairing with Shanks. I can't wait to hear this.
And I'll just say, to piggyback off what you were saying, this is really a episode of great directors. I mean, Frank Perry, just trusting, like, I like getting films just based off of, like, if it's William Castle, I will buy it. If it's Frank Perry, if it's Mike Lee, maybe it won't be your favorite outing, but they're always doing interesting things. My favorite Frank Perry is probably David and Lisa, which Scorpion had out at one time, and that's set at, like, an institution with 2 young people, and it also has a scene, I live near Philly, and there's an actual, where they run away to the art museum, and they actually filmed there, so it was a cool, like, I've been there. I got a few directors like that I'll buy their releases just because it's like Joseph Losey is another one that I just every time I find every time I find a movie that I haven't seen of his that I don't own, I just buy it because I'm like, it's probably going to be pretty interesting at least. But go ahead. Double feature. So I came up with a bunch of different ideas, and I kind of narrowed it down to 2, which I realize is not the rules. The first one that kind of fit in is, I think, May. I don't know if either of you are familiar with this film, but in terms of a character who has trouble communicating with other people, there's a doll in this film that she kind of becomes friends with. So that kind of goes with the puppet parallel, and just how she kind of deals with the world in others would say unhealthy ways, and they'd be right because it definitely becomes violent in her case, but it's just she has a lot of difficulty making friends, and she really wants to be more social, and it just is kind of that awkwardness, and like how in her logic it all makes sense how she's approaching it, but seen from the outside world, it's a crime, and it just it's a very good horror movie. And then this film that I think would be my official answer. This is called The Doll, and it's I believe a Swedish film, and it was which imprint? It was a Vinegar Syndrome imprint, Super 8, and it's from the 60s, and it's about a guy who ends up stealing a mannequin, and he lives by himself, and he's again the common theme I'm like zoning in on is the loneliness, and he finds this mannequin, and he kind of makes it his girlfriend, and how they film it though is they actually film it like she comes to life, and like they get into his mindset, and it becomes a real human being, and then it kind of goes back and forth between being a mannequin and coming to life, how they film it, and it's really cool visuals, and like it begins with a nursery rhyme, so again it has that like childlike innocence, and the difference and what I find made me not identify with this film as much, but also as a contrast, the difference with Shanks, the reason he's able to get away with his experiments for so long is because he's in this isolated mansion. He is alone, so there's not these prying eyes. This film, he's in an apartment, and all the neighbors are extremely nosy and getting in his business and getting in his head and judging him and trying to figure out, oh, does he have a girl in his room? And it's just this constant. It's like it shows how these stories don't work when it's set in where there are other people involved and when they can. And it's like it all falls apart, and it's like the question of, did it fall apart because he got these outside judgments saying this is wrong or this is creepy or you shouldn't be hanging out with inanimate objects, and is that what ruined it, or was it just would it have been empty either way, or is it just this outsider's views? Like, was it just this innocent his approach to trying to feel a little less lonely? And but it's just interesting how just because of the setting, it completely changes the tone of the movie. There's a lot more judgment being passed, and yeah, but it's a really interesting film. Like I said, I struggled with it more because I couldn't tell whether they wanted us to agree with the people on the outside, like, or they're trying to, because it's not really done in a helpful way. It's done more it's not like, oh, we're going to become your friends now. It's more like, we're just going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong, and we don't like that, and you shouldn't. You're a bad influence, and it's a lot. It's equally dark, but just in a different society. And I get tired sometimes of society always passing judgment. And like I said, I don't know that having a doll as a girlfriend is a healthy solution and would have been long term. But it just hearing other people immediately jump to conclusions and not do it in a friendly way immediately makes me want to side with the young man in this movie. But it also like begins with a nursery rhyme. It has that like childlike side to it. I preferred Shanks, which is a little weirder, take things in a more dark humor direction. But as a double feature, I think they have a lot of interesting parallels.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one, Aaron?
I have, actually, because, of course, it is part of the OCN partner labels for Vinegar Syndrome, like Rachael said. And I saw it, actually. I have my Letterboxd up right now, so I can actually tell. When did I watch it? I always forget when I watch most of the things, but I've actually seen both of Rachel's picks because, you know, I talked about both of them on Chasing Labels once upon a time. So, yeah, I watched that last December, so that must have been a December release from Vinegar Syndrome of 2025. And May has actually had 2 releases, I think, since we've been doing.
Yeah, I've seen May. Yeah,
May had a second site release, and I think a Lionsgate release as well. I think that's the one.
Yeah, I have the Lionsgate. I think they have a lot of the same bonus features. Like I think Second Sight did it, and then Lionsgate carried them over. So it just depends on whether you want Region 1 or Region 2, or the cover art being different.
Right, but the movie in and of itself is incredibly macabre, and it's dark and twisted. But like you kind of saying, it is exploring this idea of extreme loneliness. And I think both of those picks are exploring, you know, extreme loneliness. And I mean, there are several movies like that where it leaves you up to a viewer of how you're supposed to relate or not relate to the protagonist of those films. I know in May it's a little more clean cut, no pun intended, where she does do kind of some evil things, if you will.
She crosses a line and then stops caring about the consequences. And
once they start going off of the deep end, I think it becomes a little more clear as to how you should be feeling as a viewer of this. But something like Doll is a little more ambiguous, if you will. I mean, now that you've chosen your 2, I think another one that I think comes up a lot is Lars and the Real Girl.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
Like that's another one where it's incredibly emotional, deep, thematically rich movie, where on the surface it may sound a little odd that, you know, you have this kind of quirky individual man who has a girlfriend who is a mannequin, if you will, like it's a doll, kind of similar to what you were saying. And the people around him are very sensitive to the way he's thinking about it and kind of go along with what he is, like treat her as if she's a real person because to him she is. And they really it's a whole opens up the whole gamut of mental health and things like that. And like I said, exploring extreme loneliness and all kinds of stuff. That's a movie that seemingly keeps getting re-released several times over the last few years. They just got another new release, Lars and the Real Girl. But yeah, that when you started talking about those two movies, it made me think of that. But yeah, two pretty good choices with Shanks. And Shanks has that macabre thing with death in it, or inanimate objects that become animated, if you will.
Yeah, but it has the different morality too. Like you said in May, like she starts some of the people who get hurt, you feel bad for her, so it starts crossing that line. Versus with Shanks, people get hurt as well, but his targets, who he targets, are specifically the people. It's more of a hero versus villains. Like he never targets anyone who is innocent. It's just so there is more of a, even though it's not good, you can side with him more. It's less of that. May is definitely the one that goes the furthest. Like you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, in Shanks, the malice, if you will, is not really done by him. It just kind of happens, and then he kind of does stuff afterward.
Yeah,
it's all moral grayish ground there, I guess. Like, for example, like someone will be hit by a car in Shanks, and then he will reanimate it, and puppetry work ensues.
Yeah, he didn't actually cause it though. It's like it's like, what do you do with the bodies afterwards? It's like, and it's definitely moral gray area. But it's more done in an innocent. He isn't causing. He didn't set her up to get hit by the car. It just happened, and he goes with it.
He goes with it, if you will. Yeah. But yeah, the good choices. Steven, shall we move on to me? Mine was going to be a little less interesting of a pick.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I kind of just went kind of simple with this, or kind of relatively simple. A similar period set piece dealing with people constructing artwork, or artistry and entertainment and things like that. I'm going with Amadeus.
So boring. No.
Yeah, I know. Milos Forman's Amadeus, the Academy Award-winning Best Picture from the early 1980s. Similarly enough, this kind of connects a little bit with Steven's pick, because Larry Karaszewski is also responsible for working on this restoration as well. This was a long time coming. This is the 4K UHD. This is the theatrical cut, which was put out by Warner Brothers, I think last year. Either last year or the year before. The years start running into each other after a while, but the theatrical cut had not gotten a HD release, I don't think, ever. The ones that had come out from Warner Brothers, whether it be standard Blu-ray casing or the Digibook casing, was the longer director's cut. The only way to get the theatrical cut was the old Snapper case DVD. I think that was the one. And this is the one people had wanted for many years, because this is the one that came out in the theaters back during the time it came out. This is the one that won all the awards. This is that is the cut. And I haven't really done a comparison to the director's cut and theatrical cut. All I can say is that I remember watching this movie in high school music classes, because that's what they decided to show us. It's about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. But it's done through the lens of someone who's just incredibly, insanely jealous and obsessed with him at the same time in Salieri, portrayed by F. Murray Abraham. So you get the entire story of like Mozart and his rise to fame and glory and greatness through this obsessive, jealous lens of Salieri. Later on in his life, kind of recollecting his earlier days and how he could never be as good as Mozart was. Now, this takes place about a century before the events in Topsy Turvy. Mozart, I believe, passed away in 1791. But he was actually relatively young. I don't even think he was 40 years old. I think he was born in 1754, died in 1791. So he was rather young when he died. But either way, about a century separates the two. But these movies definitely explore the genius level of artistry and entertainment of its time. And that's kind of the thematic through line through both of the movies. They're both also kind of long. They're both 160 minutes exactly. Interesting.
That's the theme. 160-minute movies.
What's nuts is I felt like Amadeus moves so much faster than Topsy Turvy. If I had to compare the two in terms of plot pacing and just overall general interest. Maybe it has to do with the way the story is structured via flashback, or how dynamic the character of F. Murray Abraham is portraying is, or even how dynamic the Mozart character is. Quite an eccentric person that Amadeus Mozart, as he is depicted in this film. Yeah, beautiful set design, great acting. Like I said, the screenplay moves beautifully plot paced, and I don't think you necessarily need to be into classical music to appreciate this movie and its quality, as opposed to Topsy Turvy, which I said you kind of maybe have to be more in tune to theater and opera in order to appreciate what's going on in this movie. This movie, I don't think you have to, because it's more of a character study and an exploration of a lot of other more universal themes than Topsy Turvy. So I went with Mozart. A little bit of a safe pick, but I feel like maybe Amadeus needs more love. Who knows?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that
does
one.
it need 2 Academy Awards for Best Picture?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I don't like Steven. I don't know if you've seen it. I know Rachel, you said you haven't seen it.
No, but I like Milos Forman fan, and I like how he does. I know this is probably more a biopic than a musical, but I love Hair. I think he did the Ragtime musical too, so I like how he addresses or treats music content. So I would be interested in seeing it, but no, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
Well, I've seen that. I haven't seen Topsy Turvy, so now I can. If it's a safe pick, maybe because I like Amadeus, I'm gonna like Topsy Turvy. We'll see. All right. Well, I'll get us. I'll end this with a bang. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. I'll end this with a bang here, literally, because there'll be banging in this movie. Not actually. You know what? Not a lot of banging in this movie. You know why? Because our main character is a virgin.
Oh. Wow.
40-year-old virgin as my double feature pick. Okay, think about it. I mean, like, we talked about it last summer. It's an exploration of sexual, awakening, emergence. This character has not had sex, and he spends the whole movie getting peer pressured into trying to have sex with somebody. I mean, it's exploring a lot of the same themes. And after watching last summer, you're going to need a pick-me-up. Because that ending will floor you, and you'll be like, God, do I feel like watching anything else? Well, Judd Apatow will pop in and say, hey, guys, look, we can talk about sex. And, in this movie, they really get out there and they talk. It's very dialogue heavy. They really talk about everything. You got a bunch of dudes getting together. They talk about sex. And then they try to help Andy, who is our main character, Steve Carell, try to have sex with somebody. But as we explore that, we come to find out, he really takes it seriously. He doesn't want to just have sex. He wants to find somebody that he cares about, somebody he loves. And that's a great lesson about this movie that kind of reflects in last summer. You got these characters who are there's nothing wrong with wanting to just have sex. There's nothing wrong with that. But they seem to be, it seems in last summer, the characters have gotten so wrapped up in doing them things that they're kind of forgetting themselves, and not exploring why they're doing things. And Andy has spent a lot of time trying to understand who he is and the type of person he wants to have sex with. And it just never happens for him until we finally get to this movie where he meets somebody that he does love. And, he finally makes it in the end, and it's a happy ending. And I'm glad in so many ways. Yes. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I know you both seen this movie.
Actually, I haven't.
Whoa! We got a 40-year-old virgin. Wow.
Exactly. So no,
Andrew,
I haven't.
Well, you can speak to
that. So I've seen it, because it's Steve Carell's like coming out party. It's like that and The Office hit at the same time.
The Office I've seen. I'm safe on that front.
So yeah, I believe, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, that movie came out in 2004, 5-ish. So that would have been right around the time, or maybe even 2006. But either way, it was right when The Office was starting out. So it was the combination of that movie plus The Office starting to grow in popularity that skyrocketed or catapulted Steve Carell's career, and then obviously it's gone on to what it is now. But yeah, that movie was also like a big Judd Apatow hit at the time. He had done work before that, like
this was really his
Freaks and Geeks and stuff.
Yeah, I think that this was his movie, the first movie he did that really jumped out. I think.
Yeah, I'm always forgetting.
And then it was Knocked Up.
Yeah, Knocked Up came out after that. Yeah. But he had done television work beforehand. I think, Rachel, did you just mention Freaks and Geeks?
Freaks and Geeks and like Undeclared.
Yeah, so he had done that beforehand. Of course, establishing himself as kind of a comedic guy, and then of course starting to make comedic movies, and then of course collaborating with like people like Seth Rogen, as well as of course Steve Carell in that film, and then of course he would move on to others and whatnot. But yeah, that movie, I remember when it came out, it was such a big hit. Yeah, back in 2005, I was right. And like you couldn't escape that movie back then, because keep in mind I was like high school age when that came out, so that's such like a sentimental high school era movie for me, and I guess a lot of people of my time. And yeah, it's even to this day that movie gets quoted all the time. I see clips from it all the time online. Then of course Knocked Up came out, like you mentioned, after that. And then we started getting projects where like Judd Apatow became the guy who would make like 2-hour plus comedies, which nobody typically does or wants to do, because after that he would do Funny People, which would be long, and then of course this is 40, and then everything else after that. But yeah, that's an interesting pick, because it is this exploration of sexuality, of sexual exploration, but at a different age, but also kind of at a same kind of mental inexperience as well. Steve Carell's character is 40, whereas the people in Last Summer are in their teenage years. But they're both inexperienced in that realm of growth and life. So in this movie, it kind of explores all of that things through a comedic lens. Of course, it's nowhere near as serious as Last Summer, not even close.
No, and there's a lot of segues to other things that have nothing to do with that theme. Whether it's Kevin Hart popping in there and being an asshole to one of the people in the electronics store, and they go off on a rant, or there's a lot of segues that have nothing to do with the themes.
It's interesting is that peer pressure still exists, whether you're in your teenage years or whether you're in your late 30s and 40s, because there are times in 40-Year-Old Virgin where he expresses that he is indeed that inexperienced at that age, and the response he gets is always kind of the same, like they're shocked and surprised, and then his friends try to help him along on that trail, and then kind of push him out of his realm of comfort and all of that. So that's all like kind of explored within that movie as well. Catherine Keener is in the film. She ends up being kind of the main love interest in there. She's great on screen. I think what's her name is also in that movie. She's kind of crazy.
Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, Elizabeth Banks is in there. She's kind of the polar opposite of the Steve Carell character.
Leslie Mann makes Judd Apatow's wife makes a appearance. A whole slew of, like you said.
Yeah, Seth Rogen is in there. A much younger Seth Rogen, different Seth Rogen. Jonah Hill, I think, is in one scene in the movie.
To buy something from the eBay store.
Yeah, this movie is also a time capsule piece too. If you want to know what it was like to live in 2005, go and watch this movie, especially in an electronic sense. When they're working in that electronics store, all of that technology in that store is ancient compared to now. Ancient.
My favorite scene that I always try to find an opportunity to talk about is the scene where Paul Rudd comes up to what's her name, that's the manager of the store, and they're playing the Michael McDonald concert on the TV.
Jane Lynch.
Yeah, Jane Lynch, and it's been he's like this. I feel comfortable telling you that if I have to hear this Yamo be there one more time, I'm gonna Yamo shoot everybody in the store. Just like I say that all the time to people. I'm like, Yamo be there. Like Paul Rudd's great. They're all great in this movie.
Paul Rudd makes it, like you said, Paul Rudd's in there. So many other people that you'll recognize are in or pop up in there. Like Mindy Kaling pops up in there. Kat Dennings, I think, plays Catherine Keener's daughter, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to throw just a bit of a throwback to that. But
I felt the pairing. obviously I could have went in some other directions and made it a more serious double feature. But I think in this case, I decided I wanted to people. I think it's good, and when we've seen this in a lot of comedies, sometimes comedy is a great way to explore serious topics, just like horror can be. And I think in this case, yeah, are Judd Apatow films, are they a little immature? Sure, for sure. They have their immature moments, but ultimately, if you really want to watch this movie and like really listen to its themes, it has a lot of great stuff in it. It has a lot of good things to say about this subject matter, and I think it pairs nicely with this movie. It might be a stark contrast in the sense of its style, but it is on the subject of peer pressure and sexual tension and all that things. It matches up really well. So,
yeah. All right.
Well, that is it for this installment of the Unwatched Pile. Rachael, I'm sorry I wasn't quite present for your introduction with all my technical issues, but I very much appreciate you coming on here, coming on and Chasing Labels. We'll definitely love to have you back.
Oh, I'd love to come back. I have definitely more films to unwatch. So I would love to do that. It was really fun finally watching Shanks.
That's great. We'll flim flam all your stuff. We'll flim flam
deal.
The flim flam pile will be back with you next time. Andrew, thanks again for joining us. Of course, Andrew will be back on Chasing Labels this coming Monday, I believe, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
this coming Monday will be the 10th of August. That'll be the next episode of Chasing Labels. Getting ever so closer to episode number 200. This coming episode, we, of course, have the Vinegar Syndrome and partner label titles, as well as the Arrow titles that were just announced. And then whatever else gets announced this week.
Yeah. And we should have some new Criterion reviews soon. Go get your Arrow stuff. I just got one in the mail today. Look.
Oh, nice. Oh, is that can't read it. Oh, Wake and Fright. Yeah.
God. Come on, Andrew.
There was a glare. There was a glare on it.
There was a glare. I will
whatever.
witness that.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody. If you can't watch this, please go listen. It'll be on all our audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast. And hey, what are you still doing here? Get out of here. Go watch movies. This is dumb. Bye. Good night.